Today I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to show you how to deploy directly from Visual Studio 2010 to Windows Azure, and I'm also going to show you how you can log in via RDP to a Windows Azure VM image. First thing we need to do is that we need to create a new project from Visual Studio. I'm going to create a cloud project. I'm going to add a simple ASP.NET web role. Click OK. And then the studio is it's creating two projects for us. It's creating the ASP.NET project, and it's creating the orchestrating project here, where our web role resides here. So if you want to deploy directly from the studio, go ahead and right click on the orchestrating project and click publish. Now, since we are deploying directly to Windows Azure from the studio, we need to in some way identify ourselves, and we do that by creating a new certificate, which we need to upload to the Windows Azure portal. So you can go ahead and say, I want to add a new certificate. I want to create a new one. I'm going to call this Azure New Azure Man Surf. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to copy the full path. And then what we need to do is we need to upload this certificate to the Windows Azure portal. To do that, we need to get the certificate manager from our Windows box here, and under personal and in certificates, our new certificate is right here, called Windows Azure Tools. It has all our friendly name here as we named it in the studio, Azure Man Surf. So what we can do is we can say export this. Do not want to export the private key, and we want to export it as a X509 certificate, and we want to export it to the desktop. We're going to call it Azure Man Surf. Save, next, finish. And it says our export was successful. So now what we can do, we can go to our Azure portal. I've logged in as with my own credentials. And what we need to do now is upload this certificate to our management certificates. So we're going to ahead and click the add certificate, and I'm going to choose a subscription. Azure Test subscription is the only one that works for me. Go ahead and choose the certificate that we just created and click done. Then it uploads the certificate, and now we have this single management certificate lying here on our Windows Azure account. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to go back to the studio and say, well, now we've uploaded to the Windows Azure portal, then copy the subscription ID from your account from Windows Azure portal into this field. So let's do that. You can see that our subscription ID is right there. So is there a way that I can copy this? Maybe if I go ahead and choose, yeah, there it is. Now I can get this copy functionality, and let's just open Notepad. So this is our subscription ID. Just paste it in here. Name the credentials. Yeah, that's fine. Let's say OK. And actually now we get to see, well, where do you want to deploy this application to? Since we don't have a new service, we can only choose the one that is already here, which is the community day service, and also we can only deploy through the storage account community day. So instead of doing this, let's go back to the portal, create a new service called Azure VM test, and we're also going to choose there. We're going to choose North Europe, and let's say OK. So now Azure is creating our project, our hosted service, and And what happens now is that we can go back to Visual Studio and we can say publish once again. Then we can say I want to use this. And now we have our Azure VM test both staging and production environment here. So let's just go ahead and create for production right away, and we're gonna deploy through our community day storage account. That doesn't mean anything, just means that it's gonna utilize that storage account for deployment. So before we do that, before we hit OK, I'm gonna go ahead and create or configure the remote desktop connection. I'm gonna say, well, I want to use a new certificate for this. So let's create a new certificate, Azure RDP Serve. Hit OK, and I can say I want to name this and expire date is within a month. Hit OK. So the next thing I need to do before I can hit OK for the deployment is I need to go back to this certificate manager. Sorry. I need to hit F5 for refresh. Now we have another certificate lying here, which was the RDP certificate that we just created. Right click here, say export. So now instead of a .serve file, sorry. Okay, I just needed to hit yes, export the private key, because we need it to be a PFX file instead of a serve file. And include all certifications path if possible, and export all extended properties. Click next, and you're gonna type the password that we just entered in Visual Studio as well. Click next. And we're gonna save this as Azure RDP Serve. And click save. Click next. And the export was successful once again. So before we can hit OK in Visual Studio, we need to upload the certificate to our hosted service called Azure VM Test. So I'm gonna add the PFX certificate that we just created. It's right here. I'm gonna provide the same password as we just did in the studio, and also when exporting the certificate. Create. Now it uploads the certificate, and it's the Azure portal is creating the certificate for us. So as you saw, if you go ahead and click back, you can see that it's this certificate it uses. That's what we've already done. So now we can actually go ahead and click OK, and it should work from the studio. Now it's gone ahead and made a publish started here, and in a second it should change to completing the operation you requested, and it should be going on here. So now we can see that it's preparing, connecting, and uploading. And the process here is moving, and it's working okay. And we can see here the status of our deployment. We see it's uploading, creating, starting. If you go and take a look at the actual Azure portal here, you can see that our hosted service is starting up, our role is starting up, and our instance here is allocating a node. So what happens is that when Azure is distributing our application to the infrastructure of the data center. So, and you can likewise see here in the studio that instance 0 of Rover is initializing. So it's going forward, nice and easy. So now we can see that the deployment is completed, and the instance 0 of web role 1 is actually ready. So we go ahead and go back to the portal. We can actually see the same thing. Everything is ready for us to use. So that was really the one thing that I want to show you, how to deploy from the studio and onto the Windows Azure portal. The second thing is to actually get access to the VM image. To do that, we can go ahead and say connect. And what happens is that we get prompted from an upload here. We say open, and we say connect. So now we can go ahead and connect directly to the VM image on Windows Azure. So we actually get a remote desktop connection right to the VM where our application is hosted. Yeah. Since it's the first time we log in, it has to personalize and has to set up the machine for us the first time. And when it's done, we can go ahead and do the same that we've always been used to on our own servers. Go ahead and explore the server here and see what lies on it. You can see that there are 3 disks here: C, D, and an E. The C is for the C is for, I don't know what the C is for. The D is for the operating system, and E is for our app root. So it's actually here that our application resides. So, and there's also a storage folder that we can explore here. So this is actually it. Go ahead and create all the stuff that you're used to. You have a full RSS here, and you can install stuff on your machine. I have to emphasize though that you need to be careful about what you put on this machine, because as part of the infrastructure of the data center, it is possible for the machine to be reallocated to another physical machine, which means that when that happens, everything on your machine is lost. So just be aware about that. Another thing to be aware about, you might see that we started our deployment here at 10:55, and it actually took us 15 minutes to deploy something on Azure. So it can take, depending on how busy the data center is, it can take from anywhere from 2 minutes to half an hour, and sometimes an hour actually, also depending on the size of your applications. But that was it. That was how I showed you how to deploy from Visual Studio, and I also showed you how to actually access the VM image where your application is hosted on, and where you can also install and configure your ISS or the server that you want to like you want to. So thank you very much for listening.